You are a county land surveyor. It is a Tuesday in late October, and the air smells like wet soil and diesel exhaust, the way it always does when you are 60 feet into a drainage easement with a theodolite and a waterlogged notebook. You have been doing this for 11 years. You know every forgotten parcel in this county the way a dentist knows molars, not with affection, but with the precise, practiced intimacy of repetition. You map what people bury. That is technically your job. Soil composition, elevation benchmarks, property boundaries, subsurface utilities. You mark the invisible lines that tell the world what belongs to whom and what lies beneath. The Delwood Estates development is a routine contract. 42 acres of former agricultural land being converted to a mixed-use residential complex by a company called Hargrove Meridian LLC. You have been hired to certify the grading plans. On day 3 of the survey, your ground-penetrating radar unit flags an anomaly at approximately 9 meters below the surface, clustered in a triangular pattern across 3 separate grid coordinates. You think it is a septic failure. You log it. You submit the preliminary report to your contact at the development company, a man named Russell, who calls you back within 7 minutes, which is unusual because Russell takes 3 days to return emails about invoice discrepancies. He asked you in a voice that is perfectly calm and utterly empty of warmth, exactly which coordinates were flagged. You read them aloud from your notebook. He says he will send someone out to review the equipment calibration. You say the equipment is fine. You calibrated it yourself that morning. He says, again, that he will send someone. You hang up. You look at the flags you placed in the ground. The wind moves through the field. Something in your chest tells you to photograph the notebook page before anyone arrives. You do. That photograph is why you are still alive. The men who come the next morning are not equipment technicians. You understand this immediately, the way you understand a property line when you see it, not through explanation, but through the cold geometry of what is in front of you. There are 3 of them. One of them takes your notebook. One of them stands between you and your truck. The third one, who is older and wears a gray jacket, that costs more than your monthly mortgage payment, does not introduce himself. He simply tells you that you have found something that belongs to people who have already paid for it to stay hidden. He tells you that you have a daughter in the 3rd grade at Millbrook Elementary. He tells you her teacher's name. He says this the way you might mention the weather, not as a threat precisely, but as a demonstration of the texture of the world. You do not run. You do not call the police. You stand in that field with the smell of turned earth filling your lungs, and the knowledge sitting in your stomach like swallowed concrete, and you make the only decision that a person makes when the alternative is not surviving to make another one. You say, "What do you need from me?" That is the moment the surveyor dies. What walks out of that field is something else. They call you the cartographer. Not immediately. That comes later, when what you do acquires enough shape and weight to require a name. In the beginning, you are simply the man who knows. Russell brings you in to assess 3 additional sites over the following 4 months. You do not ask what the anomalies are. You stopped needing to ask after the first site when the radar mapped out a configuration that could only be a stacked deposit. Multiple sources, irregular depth, laid in sequence over time. You understand arithmetic. You do your job. You flag nothing in the official reports. You certify the grades. The permits go through. The foundations get poured. But you keep records of your own. This is the second decision that changes everything. And you make it not out of courage, but out of the same professional instinct that made you photograph the notebook. You are a surveyor. You do not exist in a world without documentation. So you build a shadow archive, encrypted, distributed across 3 cloud services under names that have no connection to your own, with physical backups encoded onto media stored in a safety deposit box in a bank 2 counties away. Every coordinate, every date, every site you have certified over what you know is there. The archive is not leverage yet. It is insurance. There is a difference, and you are smart enough to know it. By the end of year 1, you have mapped 7 sites. By the end of year 2, you have mapped 19. The man in the gray jacket, you learn his name is Callaway, though you never use it aloud, begins bringing you into the planning phase, not just the cleanup. This is the transition from witness to architect, and it happens so gradually that you barely feel the threshold until you are standing on the other side of it. You are now telling them where the soil composition supports depth without subsidence, where the water table won't push material upward in a wet season, where the drainage patterns will carry nothing toward populated groundwater. You are, in the most precise and horrifying sense of the word, good at this. The money arrives in a manner that cannot be directly deposited, which means you learn things about money that most people never need to know. By year 3, you have more of it than you know how to explain, and you explain it through a small consulting LLC and a series of invoices for services you technically performed, stretched across an accounting structure that a CPA you've never met in person set up for you through an intermediary. Your ex-wife notices that you paid your daughter's school tuition in full for the next 4 years. She asks where it came from. You tell her a long-term contract came through. She looks at you the way people look at something that used to be familiar and is no longer quite right, like a word you've said too many times, until it stops meaning anything. You have not hugged your daughter in 6 weeks. Every time you try, you think about the coordinates. You think about what is under the ground 11 miles from her school. You let her hug you instead, so that the direction of it is not something you chose. By year 4, you are what Callaway calls a primary asset. This means you have ceased to be a liability and become a dependency. The distinction is significant because it changes the geometry of your position entirely. A liability can be removed. A dependency has to be maintained. You understand this the way you understand load-bearing calculations. Remove the wrong element, the whole structure fails. You are now the only person in the entire operation who holds the complete picture. Callaway knows some sites. The men who work the sites know only their own. The lawyers who process the land transfers know only paperwork. You are the only one who can look at a map of this county and see, overlaid on top of the ordinary world, the other map, the one that shows what the ground has swallowed. 26 sites, 41 discrete coordinates. You do not know how many people. You stopped counting people early because counting people requires you to think of them as people, and that particular door, once opened, leads somewhere you cannot afford to go and still function. The metallic taste that lives in the back of your throat now is not blood. It is the constant low-grade awareness of what you carry. It sits behind your back teeth like a filling that's worked loose. You cannot stop being aware of it. You have stopped trying. The FBI makes contact in year 5, not in the way you would expect. No knock on the door, no badge flashed in a parking garage. A woman sits next to you at a diner counter on a Wednesday morning and orders coffee and tells you, without looking at you, that they have been watching Hargrove Meridian for 3 years and that you are the most interesting thread they haven't been able to pull. She tells you that what you know could dismantle 4 interconnected criminal enterprises, 2 of which have political infrastructure embedded at the state level. She slides a napkin towards you with a number on it. She drinks her coffee. She leaves. You sit there for a long time. The coffee goes cold. You think about your daughter, who is now 9, who has started asking why you seem like you are always somewhere else, even when you are standing right in front of her. You think about Calloway, who last month told you, in his perfectly calm and empty way, that the arrangement works because everyone understands what they have to lose. You think about the archive, 26 sites, 41 coordinates. You do not call the number, not yet, but you keep the napkin, which means something, though you are not ready to name what. The thing about being the only person who knows is that it is not power in any form you would have recognized before that field in Delwood. You thought power was the ability to act. What you have is the opposite. The ability to prevent action, which is a different and much lonelier thing. Every day you do not talk is a day the structure holds. Every day the structure holds, you are protected. Every day you are protected, you are also imprisoned. The lock is on the inside, but it is still a lock. You pull up the satellite view of Delwood Estates on your phone sometimes. The development finished 2 years ago. There are children playing in a cul-de-sac. There is a woman walking a dog along the path that runs the western perimeter of the complex. The landscaping is mature. The grass is green. Everything looks exactly like what it is supposed to look like, because that is what you made it look like, and you are very good at your job. You know what is 9 meters below the dog walker's feet. You know what is under the 3rd grade classroom wing of the school your daughter attends, because that campus was built on a parcel that Hargrove Meridian sold to the school district in year 3, and you certified the grades, and you know exactly what the certification covered. You have never been able to tell anyone that. You will probably never be able to tell anyone that. The knowing sits in you like a geological layer, compressed, load-bearing, invisible from the surface. The napkin is still in your wallet. The number is still valid. You checked. Calloway called this morning about a new parcel in the Eastern Corridor. 40 acres, former industrial. He wants your preliminary assessment by Friday. You said yes because you always say yes, because saying no is a door you have not yet figured out how to open. Without everything coming down on the other side of it, you open the survey software. You load the new coordinates. The cursor blinks on the screen. You begin to map.